All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's session. My name is Jorge Acosta-Palmer, and I'm the director of the statewide training initiative with Florida Legal Services. We're excited to have you join us here today for this session on tackling callback ghosting, how Intwine enhances legal aid intake and engagement. Before I introduce our speakers, I do want to go through some quick housekeeping announcements. This training is being recorded. You're going to receive a copy of the recording via email from Zoom or myself within less than 24 hours. If you don't see that email, just let me know and I'll drop the email into the chat just in case. This training was approved by the Florida Bar for one General CLE credit and one Technology CLE credit. We'll announce the CLE code at the end of the session. So I'll also drop an announcement. Now, instead of reading bios like I typically do, today I'm just going to tell you a story. I would think this was like probably like 9 years ago in this galaxy, not a galaxy far away. Monique Keels and I joined Community Legal Services as Helpline attorneys, and we were told the phone rings, you answer. And Josh Lazar was there as the director of IT. He was setting up with email, with our PCs, with our case management system, legal server, all of that. So 9 years later, here we are. We're all in different organizations, but we're still working together and collaborating. So it's been an exciting journey, going from it's a phone that rings and you answer it to having to incorporate technology in a lot of different ways. So with all of that said, I'm excited to pass it over to Josh and Monique. Josh, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you for that intro. It's an interesting topic we're going to talk about today because we're going to start about ghosting. And many of you know Casper. He was a friendly ghost. And unfortunately, when ghosting happens in legal aid, it's something not that friendly. So many of you took a look at the chat. Many of you are workers in intake. You help applicants get through this process. You've probably called back applicants. You've probably waited for applicants' phone calls. You've probably been on the phone calling over and over again and not getting connections. They don't always pick up. We all know this. So what we're going to talk about today is some of the things that we've learned over time in our history of working in intake, starting off with working at the CLS, Community Legal Services of Mid-Florida, and some of the stuff outside of legal from our collective experiences. And our goal is going to be doing that in the context of improving, enhancing connectivity. Because truth be told, we can't fix this problem. It's a solution that's not fixable. It's just one that, we want to lower that disconnect between applicants and intake staff and applicants and legal aid. So before we get started, we're going to do a quick exercise. So this is a self-reflection. We're going to take 1 minute, and I think Christina is going to slide over that minute onto the screen so you can know when that's happening. We're going to take a minute and talk about the time. Well, think about the time there where you've been ghosted, or frankly, you might have ghosted someone, meaning you've had some communication with them, and at some point, they just vanish off the face of the earth. Think about why that happened, how it made you felt. Let's write that down. We'll get started now. If you're looking at your phones, we have about 30 seconds left. We have some fun in the chat too, with coming down with about 5 seconds left. And it's interesting because Jorge and Monique and I all do work at different organizations, and some people think that some of us has go to each other as well in certain ways, but somehow we all come back together to talk about intake. So I'll brief intro. Hey, I'm Josh Lazar. I am a former CIO in the judiciary, a former CIO, IT director in legal aid. I've worked in the legal industry and private practice as well, cumulatively about 20 years. As Jorge said, first director, IT director at Community Legal Services Mid Florida, and right now doing everything I can and with the team at TechThinkTank to provide services, strategy, and build software for those who serve and help their communities prosper. Monique, a little bit more about you.
Hello and good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see some friendly faces today. So I'm Monique Keels. I am the manager of the Brief Services and Legal Advice Helpline here at Community Legal Services. And Jorge has given a bit of my intro, have been with Community Legal Services for a number of years. And so my passion really lies in between the legal and the technology intersection to serve our most vulnerable populations here in Central Florida. So it's been my privilege and honor to do so, and hopefully I can share some nuggets on today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Muller, and I have about 15 years of experience in corporate America solving challenges of all sorts of kinds. I will be monitoring the chat today, so please send your questions, your comments. This is meant to be an interactive session.
And Jorge stealing my thunder because he understands what this concept thing is about. It's why my daughter's on the screen. I was about when I was last at CLS, moving into other areas and towards the judiciary at that time. And intake was just different when she was born. And we're not talking that long ago. She's turning 7 in just a couple of months. But within those last 5 years, we had so many things going on, both technologically and in life. You know, the global pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic really changed everything in intake and how we connect with people, period. Technologically speaking, the last 2 years has changed a lot of things with ChatGPT and LLMs becoming more public and easy to use for everyone. And all of the work that I did when I was at CLS and the work that I've done with other clients now kind of show why this is really important. We all know what we do in this industry. We serve people who are usually 125% below the poverty line, and we're trying to provide them the best access to justice and attorney information that we can. And when you see an online intake come in and you call them back 3 times and you see where there's an issue and you can't connect, it's devastating. That's why we believe, and we talked about this before, that intake is the most vital access point for access to justice. Monique and I talked about that a bit, and this is where this all lives. And we want to do everything possible to make this as efficient and effective and wonderful as it can be. But then you have Casper. So, Monique, can you talk about ghosting and kind of your experiences with this and share a little bit more about that?
Most definitely, Josh. So in the sphere of, community legal services, and I'm pretty sure my comrades out there share the same sentiment. We often experience our customers ghosting us, so to speak, for many different reasons, right? We're talking about sort of a human condition, a reality. They are facing very real life, challenging circumstances. We have customers who have traumatic brain injuries. We have customers who are domestic violence survivors, customers with a myriad of different legal issues. And a lot of times what we're finding is, here's one where they're just simply overwhelmed. And so a lot of times when they are not picking up the phone, it's because they don't know, which way to turn. They are very skeptical or leery of like unknown numbers, no matter how many times or how many ways we say, hey, we're going to be calling you, please answer. We tend to experience a bit of the same. And one of the things that we have learned is that truly, when it comes to a return on investment, it makes it extremely, extremely challenging when we're talking about online applications where we might be experiencing a 25% success rate concerning connectivity. We know that it can be better.
So when we're talking about, we're also talking about screen attention. So these two things intersect in some interesting ways. So we start with the concept of ghosting. It's happened, but it was formerly coined in the early aughts. And also in the early aughts, we actually watched 1 hour TV shows with commercials, and we had a larger attention span. And the things that happen in ghosting just kind of disappearing and for whatever reason kind of intersects with the decline of screen attention. It's interesting because this all this comes from a wonderful article and podcast about spans shrinking from an academic paper, and you see that decline right in 2012. And you know what also kind of got really big in 2012 with our attention spans? Snap. Vine started, and Vine begat everything else. We have now 2020, around this time frame, we have TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. Professionally, we have micro learning, right? We used to just sit in an hour and be lectured for 50 minutes, and no one would give you a self reflection or make you stop and think about something. They just talked at you for about an hour. That isn't the reality for people anymore. And that is the reality in life, not just in business or other areas. So we have a name for connecting and then disappearing. We have attention spans getting shorter and shorter. And all these correlate to where we're at today. And it's pretty sobering where we see this happening in society. We have that piece, but also what we're seeing in some, not all, but a lot of legal aid organizations. So let's use the chat. If you want to raise your hand, feel free. Do you agree that this is currently going on in your organizations, in your personal life? Do you see ghosting and that attention span getting lower and lower? Are we missing anything? Feel free to share in the chat. If you want to share your information, be glad to take someone who might want to raise a hand. Thank you, Jorge. If you want to come off mute, you can raise your hand. We can chat for a moment. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit more about what we've observed, and these observations. Oh, there we go. The chat's starting to. If you want to work in the chat, there's definitely embedded conversations you can have in the chat too. I'm going to take Glorian's real quick. Yeah, the attention ban call times are less than 3 minutes on Michelle Dave. That is, we didn't even talk about that in piece of the conversation. And the ghosting due to coverage of rural areas also true. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience of intake. Monique, you want to take a look at the chat and see if there's anything that resonates with you, and we'll pull that back in?
Sure.
Awesome. So these are lots of things that we have seen that I'm already seeing in this chat. And our experiences come through lived experiences working in the industry, working at Community Legal Services of Mid-Florida, and building out these technologies and things a long time ago. And then working with, I think we're about 6 now, different intake process analysis over the last year and a half, all throughout the country, from California to Massachusetts. And what we've seen is that a lot of intake programs do not have any type of automated follow-up. Now, there are places in all of your case management systems that you use. Whether you're a private attorney here from the private bar and saw information there, or you're in legal aid, all of your systems do this. And a lot of them aren't set up. And I've seen everything from people writing down the list of callbacks on a pen and paper every day to using a callback feature within the case management system. Now, if you're not even going to that point, having automated emails and texts and maybe meeting people in connection places where they want to live is beyond that. And we have seen a lot of intake programs tracking the progress of these callbacks. So most people have a policy, 1, 2, 3 callbacks, and then we send you the proper notification that, we're not taking your case, or you've closed due to lack of communication. Sometimes that is also manual, the amount of times you've done it. Also, could be in case notes. So there are lots of places where that happens as well. We've seen with some rare exceptions that applicants drop due to lack of communications, and you can show this in your, well, if you have reporting in your case management system that has tracks by closed cases, and you know all of the the closing case codes that have lack of communications, it's usually just not one code. We've found that on average, it's about 30% across most organizations. We've seen as high as 40. I've talked to intake workers that say they call back 10 people and 10 phone numbers, and maybe 3 will pick up. And even in the best type of scenario, starts at 20% drop due to lack of communications and lowers when some of these things that we're going to talk about today happen. So we also have seen that applicants for legal services and pro bono attorneys have some similar connection characteristics. When you have them, you have them. You have access to them, they're talking to you, they're providing information, they're showing up to clinics, etc. When you are not talking with them, when they are hard to get to, they are hard to get to. And this is most, not all applicants, most and not all pro bono attorneys, but that is something we have seen. And when we talk to more of the pro bono side, we get a smile and a nod a significant amount of the time. So Monique, between what you saw in the chat and your personal experiences, what have your observation been in your time working on an intake?
So drawing a lot of what you've already said, Josh, at the beginning, you talked about the importance of access to services. And a lot of times what happens is, like you said, there's a disconnect or a drop off. Like Eleanor said in the chat, you can't reach a client, then all of a sudden they show up at court. Well, in your instance, okay, there's a pro bono clinic and they don't show up. So what does that mean? In reality, that means that they have taken a particular slot from someone who may have shown up from that particular period. And it causes, let's say, pro bono to have to overschedule just to make sure that all of the slots are filled. And so that becomes a cyclical sort of issue, no matter if we are talking about the beginning point of intake or pro bono clinics. But at the end of the day, the main point is being able to provide actual access to those legal services as opposed to running behind clients and making them receive those services. And I think also something that came up in the chat was rural communities, right? A lot of what we're seeing is that a lot of our clients, what their want or desire is for us to text them sometimes or call. They'll say, hey, my cell service is so bad out here, but if you do this or X or Y or Z, you can reach me. And so a lot of it is us trying to respond to their needs.
Yeah, that is something we've seen a lot of, and I know I'm going a little ahead. We want, first off, we want to know your thoughts on this and how we can get there. But what we found a lot in our research, and this is generally through all legal aid, if you're dealing with agricultural workers or you have an ag grant, you're probably going to be able to get them on WhatsApp. That's something we've done research on it for a statewide legal aid. Comparing WhatsApp to Facebook Messenger. But that is really what we've seen, that sometimes people aren't going to pick up the phone call. People rarely are going to look at their calendar. As that's people too, not just applicants, right? But I'd say mostly everyone on this call probably looks at their calendar every so often. Most applicants are just not doing that as much as we might. Same thing with email. Email is touch or miss. Typically, you can get responses, but there isn't as much direct connectivity. It's not where their focus and attention is. Typically speaking, the messaging, the messaging is there. And great note. Use of WhatsApp is very cultural and generational. You are 100% right. And that the point, yes, you're right. And the point is meeting people where they want to connect, to me, is the pain reliever that most people aren't looking at. We can, there's a lot of intake. All of you probably have more applicants than you can handle. So getting more applicants in isn't really, it might be useful for some, but not all. But meeting people where they want to talk and trying to get them to have these conversations is really where we feel like a true pain point can be relieved, because we're in the place where they're focusing attention. That's what we think. So what do you think? What we're going to do next, we'll have a QR code up on the screen to talk about solutions. Now, we can't change society, right? Attention spans aren't going to just magically inflate. Um, we have some ideas on what we can do. We'd love to know what you are interested in next. So if you have a phone, you want to do this on your phone, you can scan this QR code. In the chat also is a hyperlink to this form. We want to know what you think could be a solution to this. We think that some parts of it could be meeting applicants where they are, giving best efforts where their attention is. We think moving on equally based off of lack of communications. This is something that's usually in policy, but not everyone has it. So we're going to take about 3 minutes on this. Average response time last time Monique and I did this was about 3 minutes. So we'll take 3 minutes. I'll put it on my clock, and then we'll see your responses. And Monique and I will talk through some of those live to see how this intersects with the things we've already experienced. Thank you very much, Christina. I'll give you some cues at about 2 and 1 minute, 30 seconds. So if you're just typing, you hear it in your speakers. We have 2 minutes left, and amazingly already a response, 3 responses. This is great. All right. I'll do some of these as we're almost at 1 minute left. Okay, so I love the chat here. Can we have a session on ghosting with volunteer attorneys? We're trying to fix some of that. And we can definitely have a conversation on that, Jorge. That feels like I have so many ideas. I love this. I love that idea, Jorge. Let's think of that. And Michelle, I 100% agree. Ghosting is most frustrating when you've invested the time, and that, to me, that's the most frustrating part. Maybe is to you, Monique. We know people who are doing online intakes invested some time, and
Yes,
we know they may have issues, and they never pick up.
exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, I think we all feel those frustrations. And again, that's why I say this is a societal issue, not something we can solve with 10 seconds left, not something we can solve overnight. But if we can give access to this as best as possible, and we're done, which is good because the average time this time is 2:10. Everyone's quick on the draw. We got 14 in. I'll give some of that. Okay, so I think we already had the follow-up conversation of ghosting, and it's it's an interesting thing because we've all been ghosted. We've probably all ghosted someone, and the consequences are a little different. when it comes to what we do, Monique, right? That's how I feel.
It is. It's different than ghosting for a lens crafter's appointment, let's say, right? When we're talking about legal issues, sometimes someone's livelihood, someone's housing is on the line. And unfortunately, it could have really dire ramifications if we don't make that, that connection.
Yeah, I agree. And so I'm going to go through some of the things you'd like to change about your current callback system, give you some insights what we have from 14 people here. We're more automation. The number of people callers have to speak to go through typically only adds to their frustration. That's the one-stop shop versus multiple stops. That's depends on your organization, right? That there are some there. I know there are people on here. I saw their names that with outside of online intake do have not one call resolution, but if you're qualified in the call that you have. Online intake's the interesting part, Monique, and this is kind of what we're doing together because there is no good at this point time to get someone who's on an online intake and get them to a live human being quickly. There are ways to technologically do it, but online intake is 24/7. What are your thoughts on that?
I would agree with those sentiments, Josh. We have tried initially in the past to give blocks of time, and even that has proved to be insufficient for meeting those particular needs because that's the thing with our particular clientele, their needs change very quickly. And so when you just have a static sort of solution that's not really working with them, they're more apt to respond with, oh, I have to cancel, I can't make it, things like that, when they don't have other features. So I can say in times past, we've dealt with a lot of more static products that, if a person wasn't available, they're just not available, and we haven't made the connection.
Yeah, and I'm dropping some, they might be a little small, I apologize. Some of your feedback in here too, which I thought was interesting. Going back to some things that maybe you read ahead. Confirming people via text before a callback is triggered, scheduling intakes of callers, a true call center and callback feature. The customer will provide more information. Okay, we've all been there. That's it. You can only do so much. Some people are going to just click through and get with the most minimal thing, and then you have to call back and do pretty much a full intake or darn near close. So that's true. Having access, enabling text messages, and implementing texting, dates and times daily in court outreach. There's a lot of things here we're going to talk about, and now we have 15, so all the numbers are wrong. We're just going to take it from 17 what we got. I will say confidence in your existing resources to meet needs or challenges is low, which is unfortunate. And I will say this is different than the last time we did this. Measuring connections to clients is pretty high, which is wonderful because it's really hard to change something if you don't measure it. Go right into our KPI conversation. And lastly, does your organization track customer and client connection trends? About 60-40 right now, but more than not, which I love because data can become information can become power. So that's wonderful. So let's talk about what we're trying to do about it. So, and by we TechThinkTank and working with a CLS and a spoiler alert, we just had someone who is going to be client number 2. Monique didn't know that until right now. That happened while this conversation was happening. What we saw, and we're not the only ones. There's a couple of other business partners in the legal aid space and kind of in the legal space too, private as well, that has seen a need for intake change. That ask started with legal aid organizations in 2023 through LSC. If you're not familiar, Legal Service Corporation, largest funder of civil legal aid in the nation, about $500 million of a line item in the federal budget. Their technology improvement grants or innovation grants, TIG grants, and there's also a technology improvement program, had funding for approximately 10 intake projects in 2023. That included a bunch of business process analysis, of which we did a good amount of those. There's another organization that does a good amount of those in this space too. And we probably did most of them actually in 2024. And there was 2 scheduling and calendaring TIG grants specifically to trying to build this connection. So we saw that this was happening. We also saw that there was not one piece of software dedicated to the connection point of intake and formalizing that. Not a piece of your case management system, which does happen. Not doc assemble and online intake, which is great and wonderful. Something that is focused on having applicants and intake staff understand and connect together better. So what we did was we got in a car and started coding and driving from Orlando to Charlotte to that TIG conference. We were building in the spark of what became Intwine while we were driving. It was very fun. I actually think I have some pictures from that. I should probably get up online. So what does that actually look like? While I'm switching over and going to present in a moment, Monique, can you give me some insight of how what you saw and not where we're at today. We'll show where we're at today. We'll talk about the future, but what you kind of saw and how this kind of got on your radar.
Well, it was easy to get on our radar. One, because we actually submitted for a TIG, grant as a part of a chatbot. And a part of it was, hey, how do we reward those customers, right, who help themselves and they begin the online intake application process? How do we connect with them quicker? And so this was a part of an 18-month grant. And we looked, coincidentally, Josh, high and low for all different types of vendors. And it wasn't until the conclusion or near the conclusion of that grant that we actually ran across Intwine. We had tried to pitch this, and what we kept running into was there were so many people that were out in the market, but they were either geared towards, private sales, other things that had nothing to do with public interest, and the clients that we experience. And so it was sort of a no-brainer for us to go with you all, not to tout your horn, but really,
Please keep going.
yes, in actuality,
Yeah.
it was easy because you spoke the language
Yeah.
of our customers.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's kind of what we were finding when we start doing our comparisons and our research. Yes, we know what a safe number is, and we will build stuff to accommodate for that in time. And we've experienced this as technologists and people that have worked in the space. And the applicants for legal services, and truth be told, applicants for most services from any nonprofit, they do and act differently than we might together. So Calendly and those general calendaring programs really do great things for business to business. And we saw in the chat people using Square as their appointment systems, which again, a lot of people are used to, and that's wonderful. We feel that yes, those are great. And getting people to respond to them, to interact with them, to give us the intent that they are going to connect is layer 2 of that. And this is where we're going. So this is Intwine as it currently looks. If you're going to be watching this in maybe 2 or 3 months, it might look very different than that. We have a full UI and UX project going on right now to change how this looks, to make it not only more accessible, but also to make it usable in multiple modes. So
and for those non-techies, the UI UX is user experience.
User experience and user interface, yes. So this is where we're at right now, where we have these things called cells, and these cells are within projects. The scheduling cell allows you to schedule the calendar currently connected to Microsoft, Google Workspace in the future. We'll talk about the future later. And we provide these meeting titles, phone numbers, information. And one of the first things that Monique actually asked for, their intake process is a little different than standard. They call out. They do outbound. They don't do they do inbound, but when they're doing these callbacks, it's usually this level of outbound call. Actually, let me make sure I'm doing that right, Monique. You want people to pick up their phone when their scheduled appointment happens. So look for this number and pick up the phone, please. Correct?
That is correct.
I want to make sure. Sometimes it's reversed where it is, hey, we're going to call you from this, you're going to call us at this time. We're going to be available. We will pick up the phone. You got to call us. So we have these meeting notes that we can send through all of our different communication methods. Currently, that's text and email. In the future, we'd love to hear what you want to do. We are definitely getting into WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger because we see in our research 180 million Americans use Facebook Messenger, and it's something like 2.5 billion worldwide. WhatsApp is about 175 US and about 3 or 4 billion worldwide. So we're going to be adding those because we know people in this space use those tools. Great callback to the generational and part of that too, correct. Or if you have an Android and I have an iPhone, sometimes WhatsApp is how we talk to each other visually. So we can send all this data out through text, through emails. I'm not going to bore you with all this stuff. This ends up becoming a URL that they will get access to that looks like this with these meeting notes and all this data over here. They can click and select their times. They can get reminders via phone or email. We have all these GDPR based opt-ins. So we have this information. One note that Monique brought up literally last week, there seems to be a conversation, at least in the legal aid area, where a intake worker asking if we have your consent to send you a text really isn't exactly an opt-in because they're not taking the action and we're filling it out for them. And more than likely, you don't record every intake. So if someone said, "Why are you texting me?" and filed the complaint, you probably couldn't figure that out. With the way we do this system, that is also something we are collecting to make sure we are doing the right thing. We are not selling, we're not doing anything like that, but we are doing that to make sure we're doing the right thing. We also purposely don't take any other identifying information other than the reminder information. And we are working a way to tie that back with unique identifiers back to your case management systems. So this is how they can get reminders, get emails, get all this information, schedule time with you, with intake workers. We also see this being potentially useful for the pro bono side, and we have something we're hoping we're going to get access to funding for that. We're also testing out in the future this for client and attorney relationships where you already are a case, and that percentage goes down really far. So we see it's like 5 to 10% of people that ghost after they've qualified as a full intake. And if they're getting a vice brief service or full representation, there is still some ghosting there, a lot less. So we're looking at those methods too. I'm showing you here, this is our actual active demo of Intwine Workspace. We got to be tight on time because I have a meeting at 1 o'clock, but they have not told me if they're going to show up. So what we do here, this is what the intake workers will see. This is the space where they will know if you got reminders on your cell phone or your text message. I also have something queued up in 2 minutes to ding me. You can find out if they've connected. They can reschedule themselves. They can cancel themselves. They can tell you they are going to show up. And we have these dispositions where you can say if you've attended, you can say if you've missed, and in the near future, you can reschedule them right from the screen. So they get another text, they get a link to schedule a new time, and they can go through the process themselves. So there's a bit more here, but we want to be mindful of time. So that is pretty much where we are at now. What we'd love to know, as Christina puts up the slide deck again, is where you might want to go and how this looks in the future. We have some ideas, but we'd love to grab your information in the chat. We'd love to get some, if you want to unmute your mic like Jorge was saying, and see where you want to go, because we have some ideas. And even better than our ideas are people that are working in the space and understanding what's going on live. So yeah, let us know. What do you think this should be in the future?
I'll just go ahead and unmute and
Sure.
say it feels like, you know, you're on the right track and we're on the right track. The I think the key is trying to meet this huge need with limited resources, almost like, there's this wave of water coming at you, and you've got your fingers and toes all in the dam, trying to keep it all from spilling over. And the more we can patch up those holes with automated processes, the better we, I guess can serve the need. So in throughout 2025, that's what we're looking at. How can we increase automation? And the other thing we found out by increasing automation is more accuracy, because all of us in this field have so many rules and
Yes.
regulations bearing down on us at all times. And so, you know, trying to automate things also tends to, we have found, increase accuracy. So I don't know if that really answers that question. That's what we're looking at, though, more automation
Yeah.
in general.
No, it's a great point, and the way we're thinking of that as a piece of that puzzle is to get intake workers out of the business of leaving voicemails and sending emails and trying to be matchmakers, if you will, and try to get them in the business of talking to people and having people who will pick up the phone and getting data and analytics on what that looks and feels like, and have the app. There's a whole conversation about how much friction in the process, trying to find a better word for it, like how much do you want to have an applicant do before they get access to a human resource versus they have a need, you're going to talk to a human, there's nothing stopping that filter, right? And that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. To get more automated means you need to stop doing manual processes. And a lot of people are doing manual processes when it comes to callbacks. And we have already pieces that are going to help with some of that, but you are 100% right. Other things that, and I didn't see anything in the chat, other things that we're thinking about doing through kind of that same way, we're going to attempt to collect Caspers, friendly ghosts, and try to find out why they're ghosting, and perhaps get some data in post that might put them back into the process. Because usually when people ghost in a business sense, they drop off because they don't want to talk to you. That's fine. They drop off because they forgot about you in the mess, which is also fine. And sometimes they need to be someone convinced that whatever you're doing is whatever you're doing. So we're going to try to figure out how to collect that data. We're automating a lot of our callback policies. What I've found is that most people, when they talk about callback policies, they either have it in their heads or they have it in an actual policy. And the only time they track is when they search the case notes to see how many times you called back. There are other ways of doing that in different case management platforms, but we're going to try to automate some of that as well. So you're calling back people as equally as you can. We have these intent analytics that we're working on to understand the likelihood of a caller actually calling you back. What you choose to do with that data is up to you. And we're trying to figure out how we can prove that when applicants have a little more involvement, like pressing a button that says confirm I'm going to show up to this call time, they actually show up, and how useful that is. We're going to integrate with Google as well, and hopefully some time analytics. Good question about Intwine. I'm going to check that in the chat. And if you could, Monique, can you talk about what this looked like when we implemented this and some considerations for that?
Yes, I can. I'm happy to dive in. So, to your question, with regard to non-English speakers, this is what we would like to see in the future. A lot of what we have built with Intwine over the past several months has been just, kind of from the ground floor up. Right now, it has been geared towards English speakers, but we would like to add, Spanish, Creole as well, because we know what a wide array and population that we serve here in Florida. One of the things that we have done with regard to our, workflow, letting you into the secret sauce here, things that we really have to consider, right? Josh has hit on this a lot, access to our patrons. It might look different from organization to organization, but we have to figure out what that prime real estate, where are we inserting Intwine into our existing workflow, right? How are people going to reach? Is it going to be through a chat bot? Is it going to be through your specific online intake portal? Where is it going to go? And then you're going to have to actually adopt it into your process, whatever it looks like, or however it exists right now within your organization. And that's something that we had to look at. We had to basically do another iteration of our existing online intake, model and actual manual itself. And then you have to look at the autonomy of your specialist that you'll be using for this process. Do they get direction concerning how many times they are able to call back a particular person who has rescheduled appointments? Is it unlimited? Where is that line? And then, as Josh has already talked about, the adaptability. We have to follow, like he said, those intent analytics, and we have to be able to measure our metrics. And in the end, we have to figure out, okay, is this working? Is this not working? Do we have to pivot? So I look at it as, it's 4 A's: access, adoption, autonomy, and then the adaptability. That is, those are really the main factors when you are thinking about integrating this process.
And I was going to type it out. That's wonderful. As always, Monique, it's great talking about this stuff. So what we are looking at for Creole, for Spanish, there are ways we can do this automatically through code, and we are going to investigate those. We might just have a drop down in the scheduling cell that picks the language. We want to be mindful that sometimes automation isn't always of language interpretation is a big deal. I've seen a lot of that on the LSNTAP listserv. As long as people are okay with perhaps a 90 or 95% accuracy of what's being said, I think we could do that programmatically relatively easy. Right now, yes, we started with English, and we are in this. This is the first time more than maybe 5 people have heard of what we're doing. We've made that very clear that we want it to be very mindful of a release, because we didn't want to build this straight from what Josh has experienced. We wanted to build this in conjunction with the legal aid community, understanding what your experiences are, and answering and trying to figure out how those connections can enhance what the people you are employing, right? Your most vital resource are your human resources. How can we make them the best they can be? Minimize burnout. That's a real thing in intake. We all know that. And give them the tools they need to succeed and feel like they are empowered and in charge. And that's kind of where we're going. So I appreciate your feedback on that, Monique. And we only have a couple of things left, which is wonderful because the timing looks spot on. All right. So 2 things you definitely want. 1, you definitely want to get your code for the CLE. So if you can scan this QR code, give some feedback. At the end of that, you will get your CLE code. This also helps Monique and I iterate and change things like we did the last time we spoke on this, because we actually changed things within the last couple of weeks, and I think they did pretty good. So you scan the QR code, you can go to this URL, you can click on the link in the chat. Some questions, and then we're going to finish up. Jennifer asked, does it talk to legal server, any legal server calendaring capabilities? All right, so legal server, yes, we already have API access to legal server. Depends on your API access. Legal server calendaring is interesting. We had some great conversations about this last week. Some people, it is hard to interact with legal server calendaring and Outlook or your calendar. If there's API access to do things to it, we should be able to do it. We have a pretty deep team of technologists and developers that can do that. Does it work with existing phone services? Jennifer, I love where you're going. I would love to integrate to Screen Pops and all those things where we get the phone number, you click on it and it opens up into Teams or Ring Central or 8x8 or any of those systems. Can we do it? Yes. Is it happening right now? No. Will it be as soon as we get people who want to do it? Yeah, we can build that. Yeah, so it's a great point. One thing I want to say before yielding the mic for a moment to Monique on some of that, our vision of this in the future is to be this centralized place where intake workers can get access to a lot of things. Right now, from what we've seen, it's legal server, it's the phone system, it's your referral pages, if it's a wiki or if it's Word documents or you don't have one. The intake workers, people that are taking calls or responding to online intakes, typically have multiple screens and lots of things on those screens. We can't eliminate them all. What we're hoping to do is get not only great data with callbacks and all this intent information in there, we're also trying to aggregate all these interdispersed systems and to make it really, really easy to work in. So great feedback. You are 100% correct. And we have the technical capabilities to do whatever we want because we own the software, we built it, we're 100% bootstrapped. I don't have to 10x every year. We could do what you want. And that's the beauty of where we're at. Monique, anything else from the chat or anything else?
I would say, Josh, and it's not just the ability for you guys to do what we want, but it's your ability to deliver on what the clients need. And so that is what makes it a beautiful intersection. And just for a couple of moments right now, because we are, using Intwine Live, we have launched it. A part of what Jennifer's question is right now in legal server, our intake specialists, they do use a particular legal server, a tab for our online applications, and they are pulling up Intwine as well with regard to those active meetings that Josh is talking about. And that is how they are able to put two and two together. So we're doing some manual things behind the scenes concerning, okay, which particular appointment times intake specialists are reaching out to. And what we are doing, depending upon your capacity, how many intake specialists you have, remember, that'll go back to your workflow and what that will look like. And I am free and available to speak offline to anyone who's interested in like what our process has been so far since the launch.
And we are doing we're doing sprints every like 2-minute sprints at this point. So I wanted to make sure that what we're trying to do is work in 2025 to build this to be as useful to as many people as possible. So all those questions, all that feedback, we're going to work together with those who are our clients, people who want to work with us, and try to figure out how to make this the best it can be. So we want to leave you with a couple of last thoughts. There's some stuff over there too. I'm going to leave two things in the chat. So Glorian, who's been helpful in the there you go, contact info. Glorian, who's in the chat, started this idea of the Legal Aid Intake Network, where we can talk about things like intake all the time. And we have, I think it's like monthly meetings, and I built a Discord for this. So I'm going to give you a link in the chat for the Discord. Jorge also has that information, and we can send that out. This is also a Teams meeting we have. I'll get you the time frame. I think it is every third Thursday. The next one is on the 24th of April. If you want to join us, feel free. We're about 15, 20 people deep on the fourth Thursday every month. Obviously, we're not going to be doing, if you want to send me an email or Christina an email, we can get you onto that list and you can chat with all these other people. Obviously, we're going to be taking Thanksgiving off. But if you want to talk more about intake, feel free to contact myself, Christina, Monique, put that out there as well, which I absolutely love. And if you want to know more about Intwine itself, there's some info there as well. You can reach out to any of us. So this is kind of what we live. This is Monique's everyday life, not Intwine, but helping people through the most vital part of what all of you do if you're in the legal aid sector, which is figuring out the best way to help applicants that are in need of legal services and making sure they actually can become clients. We haven't talked about, client acceptance guidelines or priorities or anything like that. But we know that there are ways we can minimize the pain to these applicants. We can work with intake workers to lighten their load. We can get people connected the best way possible. And that really is what our charge is. And if we can do that through technology or working with you or just figuring out a way to help the industry, it will be wonderful. So if you have any other questions, we can stick around for a little bit. My 1 o'clock just asked me where I'm at, so I might drop off and have Christina stay in. But I want to thank all of you for your time and would love to have more conversations in any of our groups, chats, Teams meetings, or whatnot. Thank you.
Right. We're waiting just in case anybody has any questions. Feel free to drop them into the chat or come off mute. In the meantime, I did drop the CLE code into the chat. I'm gonna read it out loud just in case. As I said, this was approved for 1 general CLE credit and 1 technology CLE credit. The CLE code is 2502910N. I will email all this information as well. I copied all the information that Josh shared, so I'll make sure to include that in the email as well. And I took the liberty of sharing everybody's contact information, so feel free to reach out. Ironically, I was getting calls during the meeting. See, that's why we need software and apps to help schedule calls. So I ghosted somebody during our meeting. Sorry, whoever was calling me.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
All right. Okay, so I guess we